Okay, so this is going to be part two of understanding cells. And in this section, um, we're going to talk about organelles. The following is a list of organelles and parts of the cell that you should know. There's going to be an activity with this. So basically what you're going to need to do is you're going to need to download this presentation. You're going to have Libre Office to do that. And so what I want you to do is you're going to download these slides. And once you have them downloaded, you'll be able to do some editing. And so as we get ready to go through the slides, I've got the name of the organelle and I have the function of the organelle listed. However, what I want you to do is to embed a diagram of those organelles. So you're going to look at the organelle and you're going to look at the function, and then you're going to go and you're going to find an image and place it in that slide so that you have notes with the image in there and so that you understand what it is that we're talking about. So the first thing, so that's basically you see that activity, that's what it is. For each of the items listed below, I want you to attach the image to the slide. So the first thing that we're going to talk about is the nucleus. And then we have the mitochondrion that we'll go to next, and then with the endoplasmic reticulum, but there's two sets of that endoplasmic reticulum. You have a rough endoplasmic reticulum and a smooth endoplasmic reticulum. Then ribosomes, lysosomes, Golgi apparatus, and vacuoles and chloroplasts. Now, again, note the ones that are in bold red. Those are must-knows. And again, that means that the ones that are in bold red, you are going to see come up many times on tests this year from me. You are going to probably see those terms on Acuity when we do the testing. And you're also going to see those things on the map. So those are must-knows. The other ones in black, those are ones that you're going to need to know for assessment purposes in my class, but isn't necessarily something the state is going to hold you accountable for at this time in your school career. Okay, so let's go to let's look at nucleus. Okay, the nucleus. The nucleus is a membrane-enclosed organelle that contains most of the cell's genetic material. That genetic material is going to be DNA. And so you basically have two types of cells. You have prokaryotes and eukaryotes. We're talking about eukaryotes. And what that means is, and we're not learning about those right now, but basically a prokaryote is a cell that does not contain a nucleus, and a eukaryote is a cell that does contain a nucleus. So we're talking about eukaryote cells, right? There's a nucleus in those. Your cells all have a nucleus. And again, it's a membrane-enclosed organelle that contains the genetic information. So basically you have this, you have your cell, and then within that cell, you're going to have so if you had a cell right here, within that cell, you're going to have a nucleus. Okay? And this nucleus right here, inside, you're going to have your DNA. And the DNA is where all your genetic information is at, right? So within the nucleus of a cell, you're going to find the DNA. The DNA is actually enclosed in another organelle called a chromosome. So what that means is you have your cell, and then you have your nucleus. All right, I'm going to draw it obviously larger than what it really would be. And then inside of the nucleus, you have these organelles called chromosomes, which we'll be learning about those before long. Inside of the chromosome is where your DNA is located. Okay. So what we're talking about is the nucleus. Okay. And that nucleus talking about the nucleus. So this is the nucleus. Now, again, I want you to find a diagram of the nucleus, and then you're going to basically, I want you to paste that nucleus onto this slide. Okay, the next organelle is extremely important. The next one we're going to talk about, this is the mitochondrion. The mitochondrion is what they call the powerhouse cell. Okay, it's a membrane-bound organelle found in the cell. And its main function is going to produce a large amount of energy in the form of what we call ATP. Now, ATP is a molecule. It's called adenosine triphosphate. And we'll learn more about how ATP works and how that molecule works. But basically, what you have is, with ATP, is that you're going to have this, you have 3 phosphate groups. If you have a molecule, and then in that molecule, you're going to have these 3 phosphates that are bound together. And what ATP does, okay, then it's a try for 3, 1, 2, 3 phosphates. And so what ends up happening with ATP is when this bond is broke in a chemical reaction, then a large amount of energy is produced. And so that's what ATP is. All right, so go back to mitochondrion. Mitochondrion, again, is a membrane-bound organelle found in the cell. And its primary function is to produce large amounts of energy. So what we do, we refer to this as the powerhouse cell. Okay, you'll see that quite often. So again, that's something to really take away from it. Main point of emphasis, it is the powerhouse cell. And with that, you want to definitely have the understanding that it is where a large amount of energy comes for cells. So, like I said, basically understand that is your energy cell, and it's in all cells. However, some cells are going to have more mitochondrial organelles within them than others, because some cells are going to be required to use more energy, such as like your muscle cells and so forth. But so understand that aspect of it, that mitochondrion is where the energy is, and again, it's large amounts of energy, and it's referred to often as the powerhouse cell. And you will find that in both plants and animals. Okay, same thing with nucleuses. The nucleus you're going to find in both plants and animals. Right? That is also for mitochondrion. And again, if you notice, this is in red. It is a must know. Just like the nucleus, I had it listed in red. It was a must know also. The next thing we're going to talk about, just real briefly, is the endoplasmic reticulum. Again, find a diagram of the endoplasmic reticulum. So there are 2 parts to the endoplasmic reticulum. It's the rough endoplasmic reticulum, and we refer to that often as the RER. So you'll see that abbreviation, or that acronym rather, RER, rough endoplasmic reticulum. And then you have the smooth endoplasmic reticulum, and again, that's going to be abbreviated SER. The rough endoplasmic reticulum, it's going to synthesize and package proteins. So remember, your body has to have energy, right? Large amounts of that's produced from the mitochondria. You know that your cells have DNA, right? Well, that's inside the nucleus. That's the function of that. And then we know about proteins, lipids, and carbohydrates. We hear about that probably like in nutrition class and stuff like that. So you're aware of that, okay? Well, those proteins, you're familiar with that terminology. Well, it's synthesized and packaged by the rough endoplasmic reticulum, right? And proteins is kind of that key point on that, the synthesizing and packaging of it. Its structure looks rough because we have these other organelles that we're going to talk about called ribosomes, and they're attached to the surface. And again, we'll discuss ribosomes in a few. So the points to the rough endoplasmic reticulum is that they synthesize proteins, and you can identify it because it has ribosomes on it. The second part of that endoplasmic reticulum is the SER, the smooth endoplasmic reticulum, SER. It acts as a storage organelle. Okay, so where do we have to store things, right, in our cells? So it stores steroids as well as ions. Now, we're not talking necessarily about anabolic steroids like you see muscle, bodybuilders and so forth and all that. We're not talking about that. Your body has multiple types of steroids. Okay, and so the smooth endoplasmic reticulum is going to store steroids and there's some other ions. The SCR, the reason it stores those things is that they're readily available to the cell when it needs them. It's easier for the cell to have them stored and accessible rather than having to hunt for them outside of the cell. So basically what we're saying is if we have this cell, okay, it's a whole, and you'll see that the endoplasmic reticulum, when you go to look at it in your diagrams, they look kind of like this. And your rough endoplasmic reticulum will have these ribosomes attached to the surface. I'm kind of missing the mark here, but they're attached to the surface. And then the other part, like you look at that lower portion, there's no bumps on it, so there's no ribosomes. If that's the portion that is going to be the storage organelle, right? It's going to store steroids and ions. And what we're saying is, it's a lot when a cell needs ions like sodium, potassium, chloride, those kind of things. When a cell needs it, it's a whole lot easier if it has it stored up than than if they're sitting here outside somewhere. If the ions are outside. Think about it like in your house. It's a whole lot easier if you have food in the pantry and you can just run in there and grab it, or food in the refrigerator, you can run in and grab it. You store your food there in your fridge or in your pantry. It's a lot easier doing that than having to run to the store or out, to McDonald's every time you want something. You want food. So that's what the smooth endoplasmic reticulum does. So again, smooth ER, the SCR, is going to store energy. It's going to store steroids and ions so that it doesn't have to go hunt for them later. But the rough endoplasmic reticulum, that is going to be where proteins are synthesized. Okay, ribosomes. Ribosomes are protein builders or synthesizers in a cell. So the body uses ribosomes to make enzymes and to support many other functions of a cell. So, in long and short of it, that's mainly what you need to understand. That the ribosomes are going to use proteins to make enzymes. And we'll talk more about enzymes as the year goes on. But basically, enzymes, they are what we call a biological catalyst. So the body uses those to speed up reactions. So enzymes are used for basically all the reactions in your body so that they happen faster. So like when you digest food, enzymes will act on that so that it helps increase the rate of that digestion. Lysosomes, their purpose is to digest things. They may digest food for the cell or even the cell itself after it dies. And that's kind of an important thing to understand about it. We'll talk about that in a minute. But again, lysosomes, they're basically like the trash compactor of the cell, right? We know that we get rid of waste, and so we talked a little bit about the fact that every single cell has to do something like get rid of waste of some sort. We know that we take food in, right? And we have to, when we digest our food. So, but how does that happen? There has to be something, in our cells. There has to be some kind of worker in our cells that's going to be responsible for digesting. Well, that's what the lysosomes are. They are that organelle whose job is to digest the food for the cell. But then we also know that cells die, right? I mean, cells die inside our body, and then a new cell takes its place. So, what happens to those cells that die? I mean, we don't build up a whole bunch of dead cells in our body. Something has to happen when they're dead. We have to be able, our body has to remove them somehow. So lysosomes are responsible for that as well. And that's really a key point. So your two key points about lysosomes, they digest food, and they also will digest or consume themselves when the cell dies. The cell dies, the lysosomes inside the cell, right? Because remember, they're located in that cell. Once that cell dies, that lysosome will actually take and it will consume the cell that it's within and break it down, and then we're allowed, we can move forward with life processes. Okay, the next thing is going to be the Golgi apparatus. So what the Golgi apparatus is going to do is it's going to manufacture and warehouse and ship all the cellular products. I mean, remember, our body is like a factory. And, we've been talking about lysosomes and nucleus and mitochondria and the smooth endoplasmic reticulum and the rough endoplasmic reticulum, right? These are all departments in the factory. If you go to a factory, everything has its departments. You go to Tyson Foods and you're going to have one department that unloads, the chickens. You're going to have another department that cleans the chickens. You're going to have another department that processes the chicken, another department that packages the chicken. So you have all these different departments. So the nucleus and the Golgi apparatus, the nucleus and the mitochondria and the lysosomes, those are departments. The Golgi apparatus, its job is to warehouse and ship. When Tyson, processes and all the chicken and so forth, the product is produced, then it has to be stored somewhere, and it also has to be shipped off to other parts of the cell that need those products, that are being developed. So the Golgi apparatus does that. As all these other organelles perform their jobs and they make products and things of that sort, then the Golgi apparatus is where those products will be warehoused, and then from there they'll be shipped out. So again, really, really important emphasis, those parts that we need to focus on, is that the Golgi apparatus is going to manufacture, warehouse, and ship the cellular products that are produced by other cells. Okay, so when those cells make their products, they send them to the Golgi apparatus so that it can do its task, manufacture them and warehouse them up and ship them out to the other parts of the cell. Vacuoles are very important also. They are the storage bubbles found in both plants and animal cells that store food and any or a variety of nutrients as a cell might need to survive. So, in other words, we have these vacuoles, but they're basically a storage compartment. They store the food or other nutrients. Now, understand, a vacuole in a plant is extremely large, and you'll see that if you look at when you look for your vacuoles that you're going to put onto your slide. I really want you to find a plant vacuole because you're going to see it's very, very massive compared to animal cells. So for a plant, this is known as a central vacuole. So again, that's where that's at on that. We'll learn more about vacuoles as we get more into plants directly. They can also store waste products. Sorry about the misspelling there. They can also store waste products, so the rest of the cell is protected from contamination. So we know that, we produce waste and it's poisonous, right? Well, like I've said a million times, each cell produces waste. So that waste is going to be poisonous to that cell. It can contaminate it. So these vacuoles, what they're going to do is they're going to store that waste product and prevent that cell from being contaminated. Eventually, that waste that is stored by the vacuoles, they're eventually going to be sent out of the cell and then, obviously eventually removed from the body. The next cell, which is extremely important for you to know, this is one of the most crucial things for you to know, and that is the chloroplast. The chloroplast is an organelle that is found in plants and algae that conduct photosynthesis. So basically, any organism that's going to undergo photosynthesis, it has chloroplasts. Animals do not undergo photosynthesis. Therefore, there is no chloroplast. You must know. I can guarantee you will probably get a question on the state test or on Acuity at some point that is going to basically to specifically ask you what type of cell would have a chloroplast, or which of the following cells does not have chloroplast. Or they might say, where will you find chloroplast? You need to understand. Chloroplasts are only in plants. Again, I'm repeating it, I'm emphasizing it because of the level of importance. It's only found inside plants. All right? Because that is where photosynthesis is conducted. The chloroplast the chloroplast itself does not create the photosynthesis process. The chloroplast is the organelle where it occurs. Okay, so there are other things inside of that chloroplast that we'll talk about a little bit later when we get into more into photosynthesis that actually processes the energy from the sun and the materials that come in that actually does the generating of the photosynthesis. The chloroplast, however, is the organelle where that photosynthesis occurs. So if I said that chicken production happens, in a building, it doesn't happen in Walmart. It happens at Tyson's, right? But the Tyson building itself, the brick on the outside, that's not necessarily creating the chicken production. It's what's inside of the Tyson plant, or the Tyson factory that is producing the product. So that's kind of how you have to look at chloroplast. It's an organelle, and that organelle, that is the building, so to speak. Okay, the location and within that location, there's going to be other parts inside of it that actually generate the product. Okay, generate the photosynthesis process. But what the chloroplast does do is it absorbs sunlight and it uses it in conjunction with water and carbon dioxide to produce food for the plant. Now, we're going to get very specific about this when we talk about photosynthesis, but the food of a plant is basically, it's pretty much what it is it produces glucose. And glucose is a molecule that is used for energy. You guys have heard of glucose. Animals use it. So glucose is an energy cell. Glucose is an energy molecule, right? It's a molecule that provides us with energy. And it's formed by taking 6 carbons, 12 hydrogens, and 6 oxygens. And when the molecules form in that sequence, they're going to produce glucose. So that's why, but again, anytime you make a product, you have to have some energy to produce that product, to make it. And then you have to have the materials that make the product. Again, if we're making ground chicken at Tyson's, well, you have to have energy to run the machines, right? And then you have the materials, the chickens, and whatever to make the product, to produce the product. So that's what you have. You have chloroplast absorbs the sunlight. That's how it gets the energy to do the work. And then it brings in water and carbon dioxide, right? Carbon dioxide has carbon and oxygen. Water has hydrogen and oxygen. And so glucose is made up of carbon from the carbon dioxide, hydrogen from the water, and oxygen from, the carbon dioxide and water that it takes in. So we'll get more specific with that later. But again, energy is from the sunlight, and then the materials that are used are water and carbon dioxide, and it produces the food, which is glucose. Okay, so that should conclude all right. That will conclude this. We have covered the following items. We have covered the nucleus. We have covered the mitochondrion. Bold red means must know. We've talked about the the rough and the smooth endoplasmic reticulum, ribosomes, lysosomes, Golgi apparatus, vacuoles, and the third must-know in this is the chloroplast. Again, you need to know all of them, but you need to hang on to and really know with emphasis nucleus, mitochondria, and chloroplast. Okay, so that concludes part 2 of this. And if you have any questions, shoot me an email or anything like that. Again, don't forget to download this and place the organelles on the slides. Hopefully, this will help you a little bit with the understanding.